What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Guys, came across an interesting one here in Australia from the channel Living Simply Australia. How expensive is Australia in 2023? I just know everywhere getting expensive, getting very, very expensive out here. But y'all make sure y'all check out her channel. I think I did something from her before, maybe one or two videos a couple months ago. So I'm gonna subscribe because I remember seeing her face. She looked very familiar. Um, but yeah, everywhere is getting expensive, and I know I do Australian videos. One thing that I forget for sure is the currency. I forget the currency. So when I say, "Oh, that's not a bad price," people are like, "Well, remember." This is Australian dollars, not US dollars. So remember that. But I know the US is expensive, so I can only imagine Australia being even more expensive. But we're going to see. I love that we're starting in the grocery store because that's where you notice the increase in a lot of things. Y'all hit that subscribe button. Let's check it out. Oh, I thought that was a Drake song playing for a minute.
Many of you have been asking what's the cost of living in Australia, especially now that inflation is on the rise. And this is, of course, something that's happening globally. A disclaimer though, your cost of living will vary according to different factors, such as your lifestyle, whether you are a single couple or a family, as well as where you live. In line with all our cost of living videos, we're going to start with the average salary in Australia to put all these costs into context. The average weekly ordinary time earnings for full-time workers in Australia are around $1,800. And another thing that I need to clarify is that all costs given in this video are in Australian dollars. Okay, let's get started. According to Finder and Compare the Market, the average Australian household, which is comprised of 2 to 3 people, spends between 800 and 864 Australian dollars on grocery bills per month. But yeah, let me know about your experience. Now, I have a tip for you.
Now, like I said, I know this is Australian dollars. Those groceries, I mean, depending on, I guess, like you said, depending on what you get, $800 not bad for the month. Because I think in US dollars, we spend at least 600-700. Especially, we have a household size of 4, but we all take lunch. Like, I just started coaching and stuff, so I take lunch. My kids take lunch. So that started. I think we start spending more on groceries just because we're taking lunch to school because I work at a school.
If you're planning to move to Australia and of course you're not here in the country and you want to estimate your potential cost of living, I highly recommend jumping on the Woolworths or Coles websites. These are the major Australian supermarkets, and basically you can create your own cart and see how much will you be spending basically. So you just click on the items that you usually buy, your typical grocery shopping.
This is effective time management. This is effective grocery shopping right here. I think I'll be too lazy to do this, see how much I'm going to spend. I'm the type, I try to calculate it in my head when I'm there, and I always miscalculate. This is smart, though.
Week, for example. And yeah, you can estimate basically.
I don't think I'm that organized.
Weekly spending doing that. Now, if the case is that you're already in Australia and you want to lower your grocery bills, something that I always recommend doing is cooking at home. Of course, this is of course a no-brainer. Buying discounted products. I usually wait for sales, or you can go to discount supermarket chains like Aldi, for example, or even going to your local farmer market. For example, here in Melbourne, one of the most popular markets is the Queen Victoria Market. Of course, these are very obvious things to know, but well, it's a tip. And if you want more tips on how to live cheap in Australia, I have a dedicated video about that, so highly recommend watching. Now let's talk about housing. The median weekly rent in Australia is around 577 Australian dollars and 603 in capital cities. This sounds like a lot, but of course it depends on where you live, including your state, suburb, and the type of property. And remember that the closer you live to the city or to the beach, the more expensive rent will be. Okay.
I think for rent, I know this is, like I said, I know this is in Australian dollars, but compared here in US dollars, like, especially because my grandma probably lived a lot of different places within the city that I live in. Kid you not, she used to pay like $300-500 a month in US dollars for rent. These same apartments, which doesn't have too much of a major upgrade inside of them, really don't. charge almost like $1,500 for a 1 bedroom. My grandma was paying $500 US dollars a month for like a 3 bedroom. A 1 bedroom costing you $1,200 to $1,500 now. It's insane. It is insane here. I know for sure here.
And now, in terms of renting, a 1 bedroom apartment in an inner city suburb, like St. Kilda in Melbourne, for example, may cost you around
nice area.
$370 per week. Having said that, rent costs in a 1 bedroom apartment in an inner city suburb
hold up. So about 16, well, the 370, probably a little under 16. Yeah, in Australian dollars, man. That's different from what you just said. Type of salary you on?
Sydney,
paying
example,
weekly though is different.
A 1 bedroom apartment in an inner city suburb in Sydney, for example, in Surrey Hills, will be more than $590 per week. So as you can see, these prices are
that's nice, but dang, to me that's a lot. Even though, like I said, just translating it to Australian dollars, that's still a lot per week when you think of it in terms of per week.
Not consistent across Australia, but they may vary according to the state or even
Australia may have us beat.
A 2-bedroom apartment in an inner city suburb like St. Kilda may cost you around $500 Australian dollars per week. Whereas in Sydney, this may cost you $850 per week. It's pretty expensive. Now, if you're a family, you're probably going to be looking at renting a house. So a 3-bedroom house in an inner city suburb like St. Kilda will be around $850 Australian dollars per week. However, if you go to areas that are further from the city, in outer suburbs, a 3-bedroom house may cost you around $470 per week or $500 per week. Now, a low-cost option when it comes to renting is to live in a shared house. So if you're new to Australia and you don't have any issues sharing a house, for example, hiring a room for yourself or even sharing a room with someone else, you can use this web.
That would be very ideal. I ain't gonna lie. Let me see. Okay. Sorry, I thought we got 470. So 200 US dollars. This is weekly, which is not bad, but that's still equivalent to what for the month, $1,200, and that was for the 1 bedroom, I believe. I think they maybe the house, depending on the area, like she said. The one she said whereby in Sydney, of course, in Australia that's a lot, but that's over $2,000 for a 2-bedroom in the U. That is crazy, and I think it's crazy. I think it's still crazy. Like I just told y'all, it's about $1,200, $1,500 to $1,200 US dollars, of course, for a freaking 1 bedroom. Not just any 1 bedroom. Bedrooms that these apartments been here since before I was born. So 2,300, almost 2,400 Australian dollars a month will give you a 1 bedroom here in Texas. And that's just a certain area in Texas. This is my neck of the woods in Texas. It's expensive here, but it's not too expensive here compared to other places like Dallas and all. Even Dallas has some areas that's not too expensive, but wild. Inflation is real.
Website called flatmates.com.au. I found this to be the best. And for example, hiring a room for yourself or even sharing a room with someone else, you can use this website called flatmates.com.au. I found this to be the best site to find shared accommodation. If you have any other alternatives, leave a comment below. Now let's talk about utilities. Something that you should know is that here in Australia, we usually pay bills like water, electricity, gas on a quarterly basis. So for example, the average quarterly bill for water across Australia is 208 Australian dollars. At the same time, they found that for a 1-person household, the average quarterly bill was 158 Australian dollars. For a 2-person household, 209 Australian dollars. And for a 4-person household, 232 Australian dollars. In my case, I pay between 180 and 220 $220. Now, electricity. According to Finder, the average quarterly bill for electricity in Australia is 317 Australian Australian dollars. But they found that for households with 2 children, this number goes up to 395 Australian dollars.
I think with electricity it's tricky. Like water, I don't think, at least in the terms of US dollar, I don't think we paid over 200 either. But then again, like I said, water's tricky because sometimes they mess with the meters here. Electricity is tricky too. I have the little outlets. Cause like I have lights in here. I have these outlets and stuff, so that kind of help. We got flat screen, but I know here it's tricky because I think they fluctuate the stuff on purpose.
Now for a 2-person household, for example, in my case, living with my partner, we pay around 230 Australian dollars for electricity on a quarterly basis, which is around 77 Australian dollars per month. Now, gas, the average quarterly costs for gas in Australia are 181 Australian dollars. And for a household with no kids, this is 178 Australian dollars quarterly. And for a household with 2 kids, it's around 244 Australian dollars. Now, internet. I personally pay around $70 per month for internet, and this is consistent with the average internet bills across Australia. Also, this is a fixed rate, so it doesn't matter how many people live in your house. Now, I have a tip for you. Something that you can do to save on internet bills is to use your mobile data and hotspot it. This way you don't have to pay for Wi-Fi. Just make sure that you get a plan with enough mobile data so you can do this. But of course, this is not feasible for everyone. For example, in my case, I do this when I travel, but otherwise I do rely on a good internet connection, so I'm willing to pay for Wi-Fi. Now, speaking of mobile plans, I was personally paying around $48 per month, and then this provider started.
Is that like $20 a month here?
Every month, to the point where it got to $62, and for me that wasn't worth it, again because I do use internet. I mainly work from home, so because of this I basically switched to a much cheaper company, and now I pay around 30 Australian dollars per month. So make sure that you do your research, especially if you don't rely on your phone data that much, because you have a lot of saving potential there. Now, considering this, you can expect to pay between $30 to $60 or even more, depending on your plan on your phone.
That's definitely better than here.
The most exciting topic. According to Finder, the average weekly cost for using public transport in Australia is 46 Australian dollars per week, which is around $200 monthly. Now, the same analysis by Finder found that in terms of car costs, Australians spend on average per week 66 Australian dollars on fuel, which is equivalent to 286 Australian dollars per month. But these costs do not include toll roads, parking, and car insurance. Now, an interesting fact that this analysis found is that many Australians are considering alternative forms of transport to cut down on their fuel.
Now, I know for me, of course, in the States, you have to have a car. I don't think life is possible here without a car. Like, it'll be tough. It'll be very, very tough here. But in the terms of Australia, I see a lot of Australia. I see a lot of driving and stuff. I don't watch too many videos when it comes to public transportation. But sure, y'all can tell me, would you rather public transportation or have your own car? Like I said, here in the States, you gotta have your own car. Like, don't get me wrong. When you're in big cities, major cities and stuff, that's the only, they have some public transportation and stuff. But other than that, here, definitely need to check out more about the transportation system in Australia.
Fuel costs. They found that 25% of Australians are walking more frequently, 14% are taking public transport more frequently, and 5% are riding their bike more frequently. And I do agree with that. If you want to cut on your car costs, perhaps taking public transport or cycling or even using e-scooters could be amazing alternatives. Now, healthcare. The costs of GP consultations in Australia usually differ according to how long your consultation is and whether your GP offers bulk billing or Medicare rebates. So for example, in my case, a standard 20-minute consultation with my GP costs around 108 Australian dollars. And I get a Medicare rebate of almost $40. But again, this depends on the GP, the duration of your consultation, and whether you have Medicare or private health insurance, etc. If you want to know more about the Australian healthcare system, I have a dedicated video. Now, dentist. I go to the dentist at least twice a year, and I pay more than 279 Australian dollars for.
See, I know here we have certain plans, like most dental companies now have some within that company plans. 'Cause, usually you have to get a job and you have to get whatever your job offer you type of plan. But nowadays you don't have to. At least here, I don't know how much it works in Australia, but usually if you have a good job, you're gonna get the best coverage within that job, you know. But nowadays you can really, I mean, according to how much you make and stuff, which I feel like is a plus nowadays, because sometimes you can't even get this stuff if you don't have a good job here. I know back in the day, if you didn't have a good job, you wasn't going to get good insurance at all or anything.
Or a cleaning. Last time, it was last week, and I paid 295 Australian dollars. So it's very expensive. And these costs are consistent with the Australian Dental Association, which estimates that the average cost for a dental consultation in Australia is 219 Australian dollars. But they clarified that dental costs will vary from dentist to dentist.
Yeah.
So now, if you want to have a full treatment, or for example, orthodontics, like wearing braces or for your kids,
that's gonna be a lot.
will go up, and you can expect to pay thousands of dollars for that. Now, education.
Crazy money.
Your education costs, again, will vary according to your location, to the institute or university that you go to, your level of study, whether it is a certificate or a bachelor degree or a master's, and of course, whether you are an international student or a local student. So if you're planning to do a TAFE course, again, this could be a certificate 4 or a diploma, advanced diploma, you can expect to pay between 4,000 to 15,000 Australian dollars per semester. Now, in terms of university fees, if you're planning to undertake a university degree, such as a bachelor degree, master's, etc., you can expect to pay between 20,000 Australian dollars to 50,000 Australian dollars per year.
That's just a lot in general. It don't even matter. Once you see that K by anything, that's just too much. That's when it just that's a lot. That's a lot. But I'm sure it would be worth it in Australia. First, well, I can't really say. Sometimes it really depends on what you know and who you know. I always believe, you know, we used to have a saying, it's not what you know, it's who you know. I honestly think it's both. Because if you know someone and you know something about something, that's always a plus. Because I know here now that you're in school, if you're watching this and you're at university, get that internship or that job you really want to be at, see yourself working at. Sometimes I know for sure here in the States, it's hard trying to find that career path right after you graduate. Like already start interning, doing all that. So by the time you graduate, boom, you're in there. Unless you just know, then that can build a relationship. You knowing more people, then that helps you get there. Just trying to help somebody out that's watching.
And a bonus tip, if you want
maybe
to
it will work for you, maybe it won't.
Course fees, the website Study Australia has an amazing course finder. You can use all the filters there, find your course or a course according to your discipline, etc., and they're going to give you an estimate of the typical course fees. Now, if you're coming to Australia and you have children and you're planning to send them to school, something that you should know is that primary and secondary school fees in Australia are influenced not only by the state where you live, but also by factors such as whether the school is located in a metropolitan or regional area, or whether the school is a state government or Catholic or private independent school. I have a dedicated video about the Australian school system, so I highly recommend
I need to check that out.
Now, according to the latest reports, sending your child to a government primary school, for example, in the state of Victoria, will cost you around 368 Australian dollars in school fees per year, plus 6,725 Australian dollars in extra costs, such as uniforms, electric devices like an iPad, or transport and general school activities.
So
this is a total of 7,000 Australian dollars per year.
It equals up to this per child. Oh my goodness. Dang. That made me start thinking about some expenses around
this
here.
This is a state government school. Now, if you're sending your kid to an independent private school, you can expect to pay more than 17,372 Australian dollars per year. Now, for childcare fees, if you have to send your kid to a childcare center, according to the Australian Competition and Consumer Commission, average childcare fees in Australia are around 123 Australian dollars per day. Now, entertainment and recreation costs. If you want to go to a normal gym, According to Cashapp Blue, Australians spend on average $81 per month on gym memberships. In my case, I go to a rock climbing.
That's interesting. I do know some gyms. I ain't gonna lie. We have Planet Fitness here. I don't know if y'all have Planet. They charge like $10, $20 a month, which is not bad. But then again, it's cheap, so everybody there. I don't know how the gyms usually work in Australia, but here, when you're paying this amount of money to go to a gym, you're probably you're gonna be able to use everything. But Planet Fitness, you really gotta come at certain times because it's just a crowded gym. Why? Everybody got $10 a month. That's nothing. Everybody got that, so why not? I can get a good workout in $10, $80. I ain't gonna lie. Paying $80, I need to be training for something for $80 a month. I need to be training for something. But right now, I'm just paying that
$20 per month on gym memberships. In my case, I go to a rock climbing gym and I pay around $120 per month on my membership. So it all depends on the kind of activity and type of gym that you go to. Now, if you want to look after your health and do exercise, but you don't have the financial means to actually afford a gym membership, something that you can do is to go hiking, cycling. You can get a second-hand bicycle on Facebook Marketplace, for example. You can join meetup groups which are free and at the same time meet people. You can also join a university club, for example. Usually these require only a very, very small annual fee, so that's an alternative as well. Now, if you want to send your kids to extracurricular activities such as swimming lessons, you can expect to pay around $100 per month. And I mentioned swimming lessons because most of my friends who have kids, they usually send their kids to swimming school at a very young.
When we were young, our swimming lesson where we get thrown in there and tell us move, kick your feet, move your legs, move your arms. Shit. That was ours. It was survival to the fittest. But you had somebody in the pool with you, so they wasn't gonna let you drown. But they would, that was just in the times back in. I don't know if people do that nowadays, but back in the day, early 2000. Well, I was born in the 90s, so. But around that time, 95 through 2005, that's how we came up. That's how you learned to swim. You just got in there and just did it. I never knew anybody that did swimming lessons. Every person I asked how they learned to swim, I was just thrown in the water. Start moving.
Young age, and if you think about it, it does.
Which it don't sound bad from back then. Nowadays that sounds bad. I know you're probably like, y'all crazy, but back then. That was normal.
This makes sense considering that knowing how to swim here in Australia is very important. Now, let's talk about other extra costs that you may want to consider. If you want to go to the hairdresser and get a trim and you have long hair, you can expect to pay around 150 Australian dollars. On the other hand, if you have short hair, you can expect to pay between 40 and 60 Australian dollars. But of course, again, everything will depend on where you live, your location, and the hairdresser. In my case, I do pay more than 150 Australian dollars, and I do think it's pretty expensive, at least when you compare it to other countries. Now, in terms of eating out, a meal for two at a cheap restaurant without a drink will cost you around 40
Gotta get that water.
But if you do include drinks, these might go up to 50 Australian.
Gotta get that water with lime, maybe lemon.
Dollars or even more. Something that you should know is that water in Australia is free, so if you go to a restaurant, you're always going to have tap water in your table. You don't have to pay any extra costs for that. Now, for lunch, I usually pay between 17 Australian dollars and 22 Australian dollars. This is just for a normal lunch meal at a food court. Now, having dinner here in Australia at a high-end restaurant may cost you more than 70 Australian dollars.
Oh, that for 70
person.
Australian dollars.
But again, this all depends on the restaurant that you go to and what you order. In terms of clothing and homeware,
I guess when it comes to food, we have buffet places, and we have a place called Golden Corral. We used to have another here in my town, but I miss it so much. But Golden Corral, like $25. All you can eat, $25 US. So what would that be, like 50 some dollars in Australian dollars? Maybe 45 to $55
the restaurant
Australian
that
dollars.
you go to and what you order. In terms of clothing and homeware, prices will vary according to what you want, your taste, and basically where you shop.
That look
but
expensive.
If you're on a budget, I highly recommend going to op shops or secondhand stores. You're likely to find high quality clothing and furniture items at a much more affordable price. And this is, of course, a more sustainable way of buying. Another option for secondhand items
like that
is to check out Facebook Marketplace, especially for furniture. Another option, if you're looking for new clothing but at an affordable price, you can check out stores such as Kmart, TK Maxx, and for furniture you can check out stores such as IKEA, etc. Now, if you want to watch more videos like this about living in Australia, or even what it's like to work here in Australia, or even tips on how to live cheaper here, I highly recommend watching these videos here and here. And if you like this video, please like and subscribe to keep supporting the channel so I can keep bringing more content for you. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.
This was good. This was good. I'm glad I got to check this out. Really am. Like I said, Australia, one of those places. Definitely high on my bucket list, retirement list. But this is not bad. This is not bad. Like I said, I know I pull up the little currency from Australian dollar to US dollar just to see. I kind of have an idea. That's why I just give an estimate now, because like I said, I was the type I would be like, oh, that's this, that's it. And I'm like, I had to remind me, hey, this is in Australian dollars, not US dollars. But all in all, it's just expensive everywhere you go, no matter where you go. It's very pricey, very pricey. Like I said, especially here in my town, just knowing that these same apartments that have minor upgrades, they're not major upgrade. Maybe the floor, which they're probably using cheap flooring, maybe new paint, but they're supposed to paint every year or every time somebody moves out anyway. What apartments that used to be 200, 300, 500, even 500 US dollars. 300 on the low end for a one bedroom. Almost 1,200. Same apartment that's been here for years. Ancient. Insane. But the times we're in right now, But appreciate you guys. Y'all make sure y'all check out Living Simply Australia. Subscribe to her channel. Hit that subscribe button. That's all I have. Y'all be blessed, be the best, and be you. I'm out.